Every year, Asics puts out some daily trainers that end up being very, very popular, but there's one daily trainer that seems to kind of get outshined by the rest. So why should you buy it? Why should you consider it? And what exactly is it? Today, let's break down the Asics Gel Cumulus 27. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're going to be reviewing the Asics Gel Cumulus 27, and if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back, like the video, watch the full thing when you get a second, and if you've been a viewer for a while, please consider subscribing, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while but you haven't yet subscribed, I would appreciate if you consider that today. Hit that subscribe button and even turn on notifications to get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, just to start our video off, some quick disclaimers and disclosures about this shoe. I was provided the shoe free of charge for the purpose of review directly from Asics. That being said, no one watches my videos beforehand. I am not given talking points, talk tracks. I'm not paid for these videos. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of this shoe. The Gel Cumulus is one of the original daily trainers from the Asics running brand. You'll notice it's the Gel Cumulus 27, and we also have the Gel Nimbus 27, which implies that they were likely released on the same year as they're in the same iteration. It wasn't until the last few years that Asics decided to actually introduce additional daily training models, not counting like the Gel Cayano, which is a stability model, as well as the GT, I think 2000, which is another stability model. So when it comes to standard daily training, the Gel Cumulus was their standard daily trainer for literally almost 30 years. Now, this is what I would consider a classical daily trainer in the sense that it's not going to have a lot of bells and whistles, and we'll talk about this for sure throughout this review, but really this is made for daily miles, maybe the occasional long run, but really kind of those standard easy recovery daily miles that you're going to put in. And yes, it can do a little bit of everything, as most standard daily trainers as well. Now, from a price perspective, the shoe comes in at a very affordable $140, which for a standard daily trainer is fairly typical, but is still on the lower end of most running shoes nowadays. Meanwhile, the weight comes in at 9.2 ounces and 261 grams, so it's not the lightest shoe in the world, but it fits kind of in that daily training mold. From a stack perspective, you actually might be surprised. You have 41 in the heel, 33 in the forefoot for an 8mm heel to toe drop, so this is actually a fairly high stack shoe. 8mm drop is going to be on the high end of that mid drop, but looking at the shoe, you don't really see it as a max cushion shoe, similar to how the Novablast isn't necessarily seen as a max cushion shoe, despite having very, very similar stack. From a fit perspective, this is pretty typical for an Asics model. It is true to size lengthwise, so I wear a 10.5, and this is a 10.5, and I would not size up or down based on length, but then the shoe itself is going to fit fairly wide, so it is wide foot friendly. I would say it is actively wide actually, and so if you've worn the Gel Nimbus, if you've worn the Novablast, it's going to be very, very similar in terms of how that fits with the upper. So I would say the midfoot is standard to wide, the toe box is a wide toe box, and the heel is kind of standard as well. Moving to the upper is an engineered mesh, and it's going to be a somewhat lightweight material overall. You're going to have some mid-weight cushioning there in the heel, but it's nothing that is going to necessarily overwhelm the foot. It is a tiny, tiny bit warm, but again, it has less overall cushion or plush than something like the Nimbus, and so that's going to make it a little bit more breathable, a little bit more manageable in some of those late spring, early summer months. The material itself is very comfortable. It has a little bit of give, but it's not going to be extra stretchy or anything along those lines. And then from a tongue perspective, it is a fully gusseted tongue. It's kind of this thinner, lightly padded material there. The tongue itself gives you some decent lockdown in the midfoot, despite the shoe being very wide. I didn't slide around in the shoe because of that. I feel like you can get some good lockdown. Your foot feels very secure. You don't have to worry about it. Not that this shoe is really going to be a shoe that you're going to want to go crazy fast in, which we'll talk about with the midsole. The tongue did bunch a little bit down at the insertion point, but nothing that caused any discomfort or anything like that. For the most part, I felt like the upper held its own, and it had some good structure, some good heel lockdown with that heel counter. You get the pull tab as well. You know, it's like I said, not a lot of bells and whistles. It's just a nice, comfortable, high quality overall upper. No flash, no frills, gets the job done. Now moving to the midsole, this is actually kind of a fun midsole. So you have FF Blast Plus, which if you're not familiar is an EVA OBC blend. And so it's going to be you know, soft yet supportive. It's not going to be super, super squishy. It is, I would say, a little bit softer than the Gel Nimbus, but not quite as soft as the novablast. The shoe also has the Pure Gel disc in the heel, so you're going to get a little bit more soft comfort, and an ortholite insole. So it is a very comfortable underfoot experience, but it's not going to be something that's really going to bounce off the ground with crazy responsiveness. The midsole is going to be just very supportive. The shoe as a whole is very, very stable because of a wider overall base. And so, you know, it's really, really best for those nice, comfortable, steady miles. Like I said, maybe your easy runs, your recovery runs. I felt like this is a really, really good alternative to a max cushion shoe. If you're someone who doesn't really like a max cushion shoe, because for me, oftentimes they're very, very heavy. Honestly, a lot of the times they're either overly squishy or overly firm for how much stack you have underfoot. So I just personally like something a little bit lighter weight on foot. So this shoe isn't like super lightweight, right? I think I said 9.1 ounces. It's not the lightest shoe out there, but if you're talking about a shoe that's going to be supportive, have good stack underfoot, going to be fairly light for a recovery day shoe, I found that this was a pleasure to have on foot for those easy days. It can pick up a little bit, like I did some strides in the shoe, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to be its sweet spot. I think that it really is just more for those daily standard miles where you're not really trying to push the pace at all, and maybe some strides at the end. For me, I'm going to take this type of shoe though over something like the Gel Nimbus for pretty much every type of run. That's just what my feet prefer, or my body prefers. So if you're the type of runner who's not really into the whole new max cushion wave, you want something that feels a little bit more classical, something that's going to be soft and supportive but not squishy, the Gel Cumulus is going to check those boxes for that midsole. Now moving to the outsole, what we have here is what we call a fluid ride compound, which is a rubberized EVA. So that EVA foam, and so you can feel it, it is soft, it feels like a foam, but they inject it or blend it with some rubber compound, which makes it a little bit more durable and more outsole-esque, I guess. So this is similar to what you saw on the Hoka Mach 5, I believe it was, where you had not a traditional outsole, but a rubberized foam on the bottom there. So there are some advantages to this. One, it's going to save a little bit of weight. Two, it's going to give you a little bit more bounce, right? It's going to compress a little bit better than a rubber outsole would. So you're going to get maybe a little bit more responsive or a little bit more plush feel throughout the entirety of the midsole and outsole. But with that comes some consequences. So if you're someone who lives in an area with lots of rain and the roads are frequently wet, then that might not provide enough traction for you for that, right? You can see there is a traction pattern, but those little sections themselves are fairly smooth. Now, I didn't have any issues when running outside. I did run when there was a little bit of frost on the road and didn't really have any slippage, but I really wouldn't trust it if I was running in the rain or in really cold temperatures. This would basically be stuck on the treadmill during those seasons for that reason. The other thing is that while it's going to be more durable than a standard foam, you can see we're about 30 or so miles in and you're already getting some wear and tear there on the lateral heel. And so the durability of this outsole is going to be sacrificed for the sake of that lightweight and bouncy overall feel. So I like the outsole, I like having this option, right? I just would be careful how or where I'm using it and understand that, hey, that is going to wear down faster than maybe a traditional outsole. Now, as far as who's this shoe for, I think that this is just, to me, I think it's best for those who are looking for a shoe that is built for easy miles, built for standard miles, but isn't a max cushion shoe, like I said. So as someone who doesn't love max cushion shoes, I tend to gravitate more towards standard daily trainers or even lightweight daily trainers for my easy runs. If I do have a max cushion shoe for my easy run, it's something that's generally going to be very responsive, that is going to give me bounce and feedback, so I don't feel heavy underfoot, right? So this is a really, really good alternative in my mind. I know that this isn't going to be a hugely popular model when compared to the Novablast or compared to the Nimbus, but I would personally take this one over the Nimbus because of its lightweight and more responsive, though not crazy responsive, but more responsive overall nature. So I think those who are, again, looking for something for easy days, who have a shoe rotation, who are looking for a versatile daily trainer, and they don't like the squishier foams, even if they do give responsiveness, this could be a really good option. Those who are looking for something a little bit lighter, maybe you train almost all your miles in the Nimbus and you want something that you could still race in, feels a little bit lighter on foot. This could be a good option there, right? Because it's going to fit almost identical, right? You're going to have a very familiar feeling underfoot, but you're going to get a little bit more return and a lot lighter experience on foot. So just some final thoughts. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I think I prefaced this one well. Like, I don't think this is going to be a crazy popular shoe. I genuinely enjoy it. Like, I think I'm going to be maybe in the minority of shoe reviewers who are saying like, hey, yeah, I actually really like this. There's been a couple of reviews lately where I felt like I was in the minority because of my personal preferences when it comes to firmness of foams as well as weight of shoes for standard daily training, right? A lot of people are going more towards lightweight dailies for their daily usage. I do that too, but I don't see it kind of in that same category. So as far as a standard daily trainer goes, I really like it. I think it gets the job done, and I think more people should be considering this type of shoe. That being said, when you think of Asics, there are a lot of really, really exciting models, and Asics is going to continue to put out some really exciting models from now through the end of the year. So if you're still watching this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, hit that like button if you haven't already. If you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. And as always, I'll leave you with a question, which is, in what situation would you choose something like the Cumulus 27? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.